Welcome to Skedlive. It's February 26. I'm Camille Buenaventura. Here's what's making news now. Ontario's budget will affect post-secondary students from low and middle income families. Here's Rachel Clemens with a story.
Tuition will be free for low-income families starting in the beginning of the 2017 school year. The new Ontario grant was announced in Thursday's budget. The money will be available up front for families making less than $50,000. The Liberal government expects that 70% of these students will receive more in provincial grants than the average amount of university tuition. This will leave them with no provincial student debt. The government expects to dish out $1.3 billion in grants. 90% of college students from low-income families will get over $2,768 for their education. In addition to this, over 50% of students from families earning $83,000 or less will be eligible for non-repayable grants. Students, however, will still need to contribute to the $3,000 required by OSAP and will no longer be able to claim tuition and education costs on their taxes.
I think it's really nice. I know for lots of families, of all breadths, I guess, but especially mid to low income families, tuition's always been a big deal. Whether it's if the parents can afford it, whether the student has to take multiple years off. I know that's not uncommon to pay for their schooling. It can be, it's just like a burden emotionally as well as financially, like having to deal with that. It can be really, really difficult for students who just want to go to school, or parents who want their kids to go to school but can't just because of something as materialistic as money. It would be a shame.
So the tuition grant is very helpful. It's going to help us a lot, and it's going to help all the new refugees to Syria, like the Syrian refugees, and it's going to help us buy a lot of accessories, and it's going to help us in our lifestyles. It's going to help a lot of students actually save money and use it for other different stuff that could help them in their career and lifestyle.
While some students agree with the Liberals' latest move, others have differing opinions.
So I'm a little upset about it just because I've already been in school in a 3-year program, and I feel like this should have been implemented from before. So when they do, it's a good thing, don't get me wrong, but when they implement it, it won't apply to me because I've already graduated. So I'll still be sitting in debt while other people would be getting a free education. So
I completely agree with her. I mean, I myself, coming from a low-income family, do know that when it comes to paying off your debts, especially with OSAP, it's going to be difficult. And I feel that with these changes being implemented, that something should be implemented for us as well, because it's only fair.
The size of the grant for a particular student will depend on multiple factors, like whether they are living at home as well as the size of their family. No student will receive less money than they would under the current Ontario tuition grant program. I'm Rachel Clemens, skedline.com.
Thanks, Rachel. As part of the budget, starting today, we will see an increase in the prices of cigarettes and wine. More in the story with Shania Lane.
Thanks, Camille. Yesterday was the Ontario 2016 budget meeting, and there were many hikes, 2 of the most noteworthy being for cigarettes and wine. Over the next 3 years, there will be a 2-point percentage annual increase for wine, and as of today, there was a almost 2% point increase for cigarettes, meaning that your average carton will cost about $3 more. So we're outside to talk to different people about how they're feeling about this, what their reactions are to this new increase.
My pack of Belmonts, usually, depending on where you go, ranges from anywhere from about $10.50 up to about $12.50. I went to get a pack of Belmonts at a place that usually is more expensive, and it was $13.50, so I asked for a different brand of cigarettes.
I think it's stupid for the government to increase the taxes on cigarettes because it's already too expensive, and it's kind of difficult for me to afford.
I downgraded a couple of days ago. Then, I don't know, I guess I kind of have to now just to budget myself.
What cigarettes do you smoke? What brand?
I smoked Belmonts until they made me pay $1 extra. Now I'm down to the next blues.
So how does the increase make you feel?
Makes me feel like I'm wasting even more money on my habits, whereas I could save even more. It's a good investment if you do want to save, but then again, what can you do when you're in the position of a smoker?
I'm Shania Lane. Now back to Camille.
Thanks, Shania. A 16-year-old girl is facing human trafficking charges for allegedly forcing another 16-year-old into the sex trade. Toronto police say the victim was taken from Hamilton to Niagara Falls earlier this month. The teen was advertised as a sex worker who was forced to work with multiple clients. Authorities say the girl later brought the victim to Toronto, where she was introduced to a man. Police say the victim was controlled with drugs and alcohol while forced to provide sexual services. Courtney Rocker, 39, is also charged in connection with this case. Police believe there may be other victims. If you have any information, call 416-808-7474 or Crime Stoppers anonymously at 416-222-8477. Burlington teacher Neil Bantelman and Ferdinand Tijong had surrendered to local authorities in Indonesia this morning. Tracy Bantelman, wife of Neil, held a news conference today making statements in defense of her husband. The two were originally
ridiculous,
but were acquitted by the Jakarta court in August 2015, after nearly a year behind bars, and was released. The Supreme Court ordered yesterday that they be rearrested and increase their sentences to 11 years. The case has brought the country's justice system under scrutiny. The British ambassador to Indonesia repeated calls for fairness and transparency, along with similar concerns by the United States and Canada. Former Alberta Premier Don Getty died peacefully at 82 in a hospital this early morning. Getty was the premier for 7 years from 1985 to 1992, who also followed a Grey Cup winning football career. The Westmount, Quebec native will be remembered for creating the February Family Day holiday, making Alberta the first Canadian province to do so. He will also be remembered for developing Alberta's resource industry as energy minister in the 1970s. Getty is survived by his wife and 4 sons who spoke to the media about their father's passing this morning. Now for our sports update, let's head over to Yanis.
Thanks, Camille. Here's what's going on in the world of sports. FIFA elected a new president today. 207 delegates from all around the world elected Gianni Infantino to replace Sepp Blatter. Blatter stood down last year amid a corruption crisis. The NHL trade deadline is Monday at 3 p.m. Teams can't trade players for the rest of the season after that. No major trades are expected. The Winnipeg Jets have acquired forward Marco Dano, Chicago's first-round draft choice in the 2016 NHL Draft, and a conditional pick in the 2018 NHL Draft from Chicago. In exchange for this, forwards Andrew Ladd and Matt Fraser, along with defenseman Jay Harrison, were traded. The Toronto Maple Leafs defeated the Carolina Hurricanes at the Air Canada Centre last night. The home crowd roared as the Leafs sealed the game 3-1. Coach Mike Babcock has confirmed that neither James Van Riemsdyk or Joffrey Lupul will play for the rest of the season because of the severity of their injuries. Now, here's what happened last night in Canadian hockey. The Calgary Flames were defeated by the New York Islanders 2-1. The Vancouver Canucks won against the Senators 5-3, and the Oilers lost to the Kings 1-2. Now on to football. The CFL announced it has made changes to its draft eligibility rules. More stringent rules have been implemented for players with anti-doping violations. Players who do not comply with the CFL drug policy could be suspended for a year. The Toronto Raptors have a home game tonight. The Raptors will face the Cleveland Cavaliers at the Air Canada Centre. The Raptors are second in the NBA's Eastern Conference, and the Cavaliers are first. It'll be a head-to-head match against the 2 top teams in the East. The Raptors are trying to acquire 7-time NBA All-Star Joe Johnson. Johnson recently left Brooklyn after the team agreed to buy out the remainder of his contract. Spring training is underway for the Major League Baseball. The Toronto Blue Jays began their spring training on February 21st in Florida, and opening day is the 4th of April. The Humber Hawks women's volleyball team will face a familiar foe in the Fanshawe Falcons on Friday night at 8 p.m., with the winner advancing to the 2016 OCAA gold medal game on Saturday. The Humber Hawks are undefeated this season. That's all for sports. I'm Yanis Kamzi. Now back to you, Camille.
Thanks, Yanis. The 5 Republican presidential candidates met in Houston yesterday for their final debate before next week's Super Tuesday primaries. Donald Trump is leading the Republican race, but Marco Rubio owned the stage last night. During the GOP debate, Marco Rubio attacked Trump's character and was also questioned by Senator Ted Cruz. Taking place on the 1st of March, Super Tuesday marks the biggest test for the presidential primary season, where 12 states and 1 territory will vote for the nominee. Super Tuesday will provide a clearer picture of which candidates of both parties will be nominated this summer. A massive shooting in Kansas occurred yesterday evening at the XL Industries lawnmower parts plant in Heston. The shooting left 3 people killed and 14 wounded. Police say the gunman, Cedric Ford, had been served a court order hours before, which may have been the trigger. Harvey County Sheriff T. Walton says that a police officer killed the attacker during an exchanged gunfire, describing him as a tremendous hero, as there were still over 200 other people in the factory. The attack came less than a week after a man was charged with killing 6 people and wounding 2 others during a shooting rampage in Michigan. A team of surgeons at the Cleveland Clinic performed the first uterus transplant in the United States this week. The hospital said a 26-year-old woman received a new womb in a 9-hour operation and was reported in stable condition yesterday. While this is the first uterus transplant in the U.S., a team of doctors at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden has performed 9 of them. The Cleveland Clinic is hopeful for its own program after taking part in the Swedish trials. Oscar-winning director and activist Michael Moore claims Toronto dumps their garbage in landfills and around his hometown of Flint in Michigan. A city staffer says Toronto stopped sending its waste across the border in 2010 with a contract that sent trash to a landfill nowhere near Flint, but continues to send industrial and business waste to landfills in the Detroit area. Moore warned that the contaminated water crisis in Flint is everybody's problem. A 2015 annual report filed by the Michigan government does say its largest source of imported waste comes from Canada and represents 17% of all the state's trash. On entertainment news, let's go to Mahek to talk about the Oscars.
Thanks, Camille. Today in entertainment, it's all about the Oscars. The Oscar Awards ceremony is set for this Sunday in Hollywood. There are many stories coming out, but first we have a roundup for you of the nominees in the major categories. For Best Picture, we have The Big Short, Bridge of Spies, Brooklyn, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Room, and Spotlight. For Best Actor, we have Bryan Cranston in Trumbo, Matt Damon in The Martian, Michael Fassbender in Steve Jobs, Eddie Redmayne in The Danish Girl, and, can you believe it, Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant. For Best Actress, we have Cate Blanchett in Carol, Brie Larson in Room, Jennifer Lawrence in Joy, Charlotte Rampling in 45 Years, and Saoirse Ronan in Brooklyn. And finally, for Best Director, we have Adam McKay for The Big Short, George Miller for Mad Max Fury Road, Alejandro Iñárritu for The Revenant, Lenny Abrahamson for Room, and Tom McCarthy for Spotlight. Some of the Oscar nominees come from close to home. Brooklyn is a Canada-Ireland production shot in Montreal. Room was originally written and adapted into a screenplay by London, Ontario's Emma Donoghue. Spotlight includes Toronto's Rachel McAdams for Best Supporting Actress. 50 Shades of Grey earned its only nomination thanks to Scarborough's The Weekend. In short docs, Pakistani-Canadian Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is in the running for A Girl in the River, The Price of Forgiveness. And there are several nominees from The Revenant, which was also partially shot in the Canadian Rockies. Now that's what I call a nice selection of Canadian talent taking over Hollywood. One of these Canadian nominees will also be performing on Sunday. The Weeknd is pretty proud to be recognized. He will sing his song Earned It from 50 Shades of Grey. This year's ceremony has the added controversy of #OscarsSoWhite. In January, many actors, as well as the Academy, recognized the Academy's failure to nominate any actors of color in the major categories. Chris Rock is set to host the evening. There were reports he rewrote his script after #OscarsSoWhite took off in January. We'll have to wait till Sunday to see if Rock has anything to say about the protest. Meryl Streep has written an article to explain what she meant by her earlier comment, "We're all Africans." Streep says her comments were taken out of context and blown out of proportion. Streep blames the media for focusing on her comments rather than the diverse representation at the film festival she was attending. The Oscars seem to be the platform for addressing social issues. Lady Gaga is both nominated and set to perform her song Till It Happens to You from the documentary The Hunting Ground. The hunting ground is a story about campus rape. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden will join her on stage to promote a White House campaign against sexual assault. Another hot topic surrounding the Oscars are the nominees' swag bags. Normally full of lavish and exciting products, this year's loot is coming off as a little trashy. These gifts also cost a shocking amount, ranging from a vampire breast lift at $2,000 to trips worth tens of thousands of dollars. The Israeli government is giving out an all-expenses-paid trip to the elite nominees. The Academy says it has no involvement with the controversial swag bags. The celebrity loot is put together by an independent company. That's all we have for the Oscars this weekend. Back to you, Camille.
Thanks, Mahak. Somali Islamist group Al-Shabaab fighters set off a car bomb next to a hotel in Mogadishu. A police officer said the car bomb struck the gate of a park behind the hotel in the capital, and most people escaped through another gate. Al-Shabaab often launches attacks in Mogadishu on a Friday when more people visit hotels and restaurants. Residents also reported a gunfire after the blast. Warplanes unleashed airstrikes against rebel-held positions in the suburbs of the Syrian capital near the northern city of Aleppo, hours before a ceasefire was brokered today. The ceasefire is to be in effect by the United States and Russia at midnight local time across the country. U.S. President Barack Obama expressed hope that the ceasefire in Syria will lead to a political settlement to end the civil war and allow a more intense focus on battling the Islamic State. Iranians across the Islamic Republic voted in the country's first election today since its landmark nuclear deal with world powers. This election will decide whether they will stick with the moderate President Hassan Rouhani or side with hardliners long suspicious of the West. The voting could provide a referendum on Rouhani's policies and his promises, which include the nuclear deal, can help boost a battered economy. Let's go to Anthony to see what the weather's like this week.
Thanks, Camille. Now here's your 5-day weather forecast. So for today's weather, we have a high of -3 and a low of -7. But heading into the weekend, the weather's looking really great. We have a high of 5 and a low of 2, but on Sunday, we'll be expecting some light rain and snow, but we have a high of 9 and a low of 0. So you might want to stay in and catch the Oscars on Sunday. And on Monday, heading into the work week, we have a high of 3 and a low of -1. In the beginning of March, we'll be expecting more light rain and snow, but we'll have a high of 4 and a low of -6. That's it for your weather today. I'm Anthony Ferreira. Now let's go to Shania, who's outside braving the cold.
Thanks, Anthony. We're here at the corner of Kipling and Lakeshore. It is still pretty cold, but the sun is peeking through the clouds every once in a while. It should be sunny by the afternoon. We're still coming back from a cold warning last night, so it's feeling about -15 with the windshield. So if you're going outside, make sure you're keeping warm. Hats, mitts, and gloves are necessary. The wind is definitely gusting, so we're going to go talk to a couple people out here and see how they're feeling about the weather today. Do you like the cold weather?
Nope, I hate it.
You hate the cold. Why?
Because it's cold and I have to like take 20 minutes to get ready every day, so.
What do you do to stay warm? You're missing your gloves.
I know, but this is warm enough. I got pockets.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so how cold did you think it was outside?
I have no idea. Like, it feels like -10.
-10? Okay.
Yeah.
That is what it is without the windshield, so you're doing pretty good. Do you feel like you hibernate in the winter?
Oh, I know I do. I bulk.
You bulk?
Yeah. Like, I just literally sit in front of my TV and just eat Doritos every day, so.
All right. Okay, so how do you feel about this cold weather?
It's very cold.
Very cold. Do you remember the last time it was warm out?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. How cold do you think it is right now?
Say maybe -5.
-5?
Yeah.
Wow, you're Canadian. It's actually feeling like -15 today, so
Oh, really?
you're doing pretty good.
It's not so bad.
So what are you wearing to keep warm?
My long coat.
Your long coat?
Yeah.
I'm Shania Lane, back to the studio.
Thanks, guys. Looking forward to the warmer weather this weekend. 10-year-old Canadian boy Mohammed asked Pope Francis, will the world be again as it was in the past? The question will be in Pope Francis's book, The Pope Answers Letters from Children Around the World. The boy wrote from a Jesuit-run school for refugee children in Syria and was treated to a long and personal answer from the Pope himself. 29 other children who posed questions to Francis in letters from around the globe will also be in the book and will be illustrated with their own artwork. 8 golden retrievers have made the long journey from Turkey to Toronto in search of loving homes. Golden Rescue is one of several North American organizations that do what they can to help rescue hundreds of abandoned dogs from the streets and shelters of Istanbul. The organization says only about 3% of dogs in Istanbul sheltered find permanent homes. Golden Rescue organizations in the United States have also worked to rescue about 200 dogs from Turkey. This is Camille Bonaventura from Skedlive. Thanks for watching.